Okay, not as big a crowd as I thought, but again, I think Marketing Cloud is such a niche product of or cloud of the platform. Hands up, the few of you here who uses Marketing Cloud. Oh yes, we have two at least. What I wanted to try to cover today is around personalized content in marketing and how we're using Salesforce Marketing Cloud to basically serve that content. So, didn't go on for some reason. There we go. So, my name is William McMahon. I've been working with Salesforce Marketing Cloud for about 8 years. I'm ex-ExactTarget. So while I was there, I pretty much got the orange blood, pretty much know the system upwards from the ground. When I was with ExactTarget, I was a senior solution architect. And with that, I've built a number of personalized content recommendation engines within Marketing Cloud. It's also a very common topic that I get. I've had 2 questions about it this week around not just serving personalized content, but how do you make it more relevant, more timely? How do I serve it in multiple languages? How do I manage the content? So what makes good personalization? So many businesses that claim to do personalization. As the cartoon shows, personalization is actually very, very hard to do. It can be at its simplest form something like a salutation of a first name, but personalization is only as good as the data you've been given. If you've been given incorrect data, or if it's badly structured data, you get really poor results. So you're challenged by the cultural, the language differences. So again, even down to the simple thing of first name, how you greet somebody in different languages really does change and really does differ. And using that within marketing practices does get more and more challenging. You either need more and more content, or you need more and more solutions in how you serve that content better to people. So we examined a recent litmus survey on marketers, which were the top trends of 2019. From this, you can see that content is king. Content is key. It's all about getting the right content out there. Customers themselves are a bit bored with the static templates and the static emails. They're looking for content that is more relevant to them, to their interests, to their preferences, their likes. The good thing with what we would call a content recommendation engine is that it solves all of this. You can produce content that's reusable, and you can serve it to customers that is more relevant to their desires, their wants, and their needs. Now, what we call in Marketing Cloud, or it's my own terminology of what this kind of engine is smart blocks. It's using existing components within Marketing Cloud to leverage content, or to leverage data and present. And it's all basically scripted. Everything I'm showing you here is within Marketing Cloud. There's not like another product you need to purchase, but it is going to be a little bit technical. So why should you build a content recommendation engine? Pretty much personalization generates 17% more revenue than your static templates. It is a proven fact. And also that 80% of your email campaign template is pretty much static. You've typically got a static campaign for a welcome, for a newsletter, for an abandoned basket, etc. It leaves 20% of that template that you can actually play with and do some really cool stuff. And I'll show you a few examples of that in a minute. To really leverage it, you have to have your content organized. This is pretty much a key challenge that everybody faces, is that you end up with so much content to build, and it's trying to get that content out to customers. Now, customers themselves are more skeptical of marketing practices these days. This is a modern challenge. It's really started coming around or more apparent since last May with GDPR. Customers' awareness of what data they're giving you, how you're using that data is more prominent given things like the Facebook scandal. You know, you're more cautious about what data you're about to hand over to somebody. Now, the willingness to share that data varies across the globe. This is something that we had found interesting. Certain European countries, or collectively European countries, are certainly more cautious to that. And again, we're seeing that primarily GDPR driven, okay? Because last year, lots of companies that we've helped went through the GDPR exercise of re-opting in subscribers. Interestingly, someplace like China, Italy as well, and I think Mexico is up there. They're more open to what data they're sharing with you. And certainly in China, some of the marketing techniques and practices in China are pretty phenomenal. The Chinese market, a lot use WeChat, so you're not kind of necessarily relying on email, but you're relying now on an application and advertising within an application. So trying to get marketing practices and content across markets and across technologies, different technologies, becomes pretty challenging, to say the least. So what data can we use in recommendation engines? The answer is pretty much anything. Any data that you do have, you can import into Marketing Cloud. That doesn't mean you should. Typically, when I go in and architect with businesses, marketers love data, and the more data they have, the more fun stuff they could do. I kind of burst the bubble when I go in and say, well, what is it? What's the minimum that we need to leverage our campaigns and our marketing? And just bring in just enough data. Don't bring in everything, because not only is it a risk because you've now got data dispersed across systems, but trying to maintain lots of data and keeping it updated becomes more challenging. Marketing Cloud is again a slave to the Salesforce Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or CRM Cloud. Marketing Cloud is very much more an execution tool. You give it data, and then it can make decisions, and it can make email communications flow. But if that data, again, is out of sync, your workflows are also going to be out of sync, and customers are going to be getting information that's irrelevant to them, that's misinformed. Now, you have to be sensitive to the customer's preferences, okay? From a marketing industry, there's nothing worse than spamming people. And when I try to explain what I do, and it's a bit like Chandler and Friends, and you explain you're a solution architect in digital marketing, and people, they just lose it. So you end up saying, well, do you know those emails you get in your inbox? You can thank me for sending them. But you have to be sensitive. You really, really have to. Some people might be, welcoming and love it when you call them out, for their loyalty and their appreciation. However, other people can be very mortified by that. And an example would be that I wouldn't like marketing communications from Love Honey to enter my family mailbox. If you know what Love Honey is, maybe search it later. So hyper-personalization requires great data, it requires great technology, and great sensitivity. If you abuse any one of them, it's at your own risk. So don't find yourself in the creepy space. It's the kind of forbidden zone where customers will call out businesses where they're using personal data and revealing insight that is a bit too private. And, being in the creepy zone means that, you might be stalking, you might be using ill intent, really start simple. This is what I kind of encourage a lot of people to do is, yes, you have this great ambition to serve all this great personalized content, but really start simple. Get the basics right, make a learning, and optimize. Don't go all in there trying to make the entire end-to-end workflow so unique and so bespoke. Two examples on this is on Pinterest in 2014, they spammed a major segment of their user group where they sent emails to unengaged women congratulating them on their marriage. So again, sensitivity, having to use your data correctly. Shutterfly, they made even a bigger mess up. They congratulated women on the birth of their babies that they didn't even have. So you really have to be very careful with your data, how you're using it, how you're personalizing it in it. And again, starting simple and match the products to the clients, to their personalities, to their interests, what they have signed up to.
I can just ask a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just kind of interested. You make these statements, but then I'm wondering, how actually, what they did with their data to make this assumption. How they, for example, they congratulated women that had the babies. Where that additional string came from.
They would have collected it. They could have done. So the question is, how did they recognize or how did they mess up on that kind of segment? Yeah, they created a segment. That data could have been from, gathered from companies or gathered from women. It could have been from simple mistakes of you liking a post, you liking a baby grow, and they assume that you're going to be buying that. So again, you kind of use what you know in your data. So what makes great personalized content? I love memes. I see so many presentations today using them. They are a modern way of content, a modern way of communication. And a meme is pretty much a great way of explaining, what makes great content. Well, it has to be timely, it has to be relevant, and it has to resonate with the culture. If you get those three things correct, then people will consume that content. People will basically not only consume it, but they will also start sharing it and they'll start being bought into it. The same applies to the marketing content, be it a blog post, be it a seminar event. There is no point of trying to communicate something that is out of date. You have to be on the ball. You have to be able to create content quickly and get it out. Great industries for looking at that are things like the gaming industries, football clubs, etc. You want to be able to get information about your games out there quickly. There's no point of talking about the game that was last week or last month, unless it's of course a summary. But you want to get hot news out there as quickly and easily as possible. Anybody know Grumpy Cat's real name? Tartar sauce. And that just shows again the power is that this cat, if you don't know him, just look him up. It's a cat that has a meme. The cat is worth £1 million because he has a meme. It's just from advertising. He's got pretty much a huge following base. And if you do that with any content, you can certainly impact the market quite easily. The different types of content that you would see, again, they can be broken into emotional, inspirational, educational, and convince. And then the types of content within them. So you've got articles and ebooks, infographics, and press releases. There is a wealth of content possibilities out there. Videos, blogs, surveys, forms. How you're communicating that, how you're using that, and how you're reusing it is really, really important. The average customer, that 47% of buyers will view about 3 to 5 pages of content before they actually engage with a sales lead. So if you're giving good informative content that is relevant to their interests, relevant to their needs, they're going to basically research more about you before making that decision. Now, it does pose a massive challenge, though, because we have so much content. Every company, will go off and create more and more and more content, and it is a bit of a duplicate content. You have to word it for your need, but everybody's kind of selling the same thing. So content production is exceeding the rate of consumption. And that becomes challenging because as a customer, there is so much content. How do I believe one piece of content over the other? Which is more relevant? Trust, fake news is another buzzword nowadays. Is how do you trust, product reviews, experience reviews, all this stuff? You have to basically buy in the customers into, again, personalized content. You have to portray it. It's real life. That's what they buy into. They don't want to be spoken at. They actually want to hear about experiences, real certified experiences. They're certainly tired of the bland, this is what we're seeing quite a lot, the bland marketing campaign that just goes out every Friday, the newsletter. They're looking for more engaging interest, something that they have, if it's something that they have bought, they're looking for more information about that purchase, information guides, utilization guides. We had one client, a major car manufacturer, and when we sat with them, we identified the entertainment system inside the car. Most people only used it for a sat-nav and a radio. They didn't understand how much technology is actually inside their entertainment system and what it could actually be done. So using a campaign after you've purchased the car about content about your car becomes very, very enticing for that customer. They'll buy into the car. They're most likely going to buy the same car again, or from the same manufacturer at least. So putting the kind of content into a customer's buyer cycle. So, again, moving through the journey of informative, thought-provoking, and decision-making. If we overlay with a kind of a real case example of something like a real estate, okay, you could take content, I think the easiest one you can see an overlap between a thought-provoking about best neighborhoods for families or for going out or whatever your interest is. That could also be decision making. So I might be thinking about, starting a family. I might be thinking that we're going to move to a better area with better schools. And then I'm in my decision mode. Now I'm making that decision. Not only can we reutilize the static content in a campaign, so these are, the top 10 best neighborhoods for families in London. We can also overlay that kind of static content or that kind of journey content with dynamic content or content engines of these are the best areas of London, and here, by the way, are 5 houses in that area that are maybe relevant to your budgets, whether you're interested in a 3-bed or 6-bed. And it's reutilizing that. This content should only be effectively created once, reutilized in different campaigns. Now, getting that right is a bit harder than just drag and drop. You do have a lot of data to kind of understand. What we find a lot of customers first struggle with is what audience do I bring into my journey? And once they're in the journey, what communications touch points do they need? Do they need it across email, SMS, push, etc.? And then what content should that be? So understand your audience, their preferences, their media consumption, which media do they prefer to consume? Some people, email is such an abused channel these days. Your inbox is just being bombarded and everybody's fighting for that top space. But if you kind of communicate to people a little bit differently through social or even through SMS, you can really buy into the experience. Shape your content strategy around the audience's behaviors and their interests. So if you're seeing that the majority of your audience are families, well then, play with that. Don't try to cover everything, but cover your key strategies. And adhere to the data trust principles. Again, you don't want to find yourself in the hot water of emailing stuff out. So start simple. Simple is low risk. If you mess up, less people will know about it. While if you do something a little bit like, emailing non-expected mothers about their pregnancy, you could cause a lot of harm, a lot of reputation damage. And then finally, use technology toolkits like Marketing Cloud that can that you can adapt, you can customize, and you can apply the cool stuff. Oh, that's a bit fuzzier than I thought. So what technologies we have in Marketing Cloud, you may be familiar with some of them. I might go to the next screen, it might be a little bit clearer. I've kind of plotted them on a scale. Okay, Marketing Cloud comes with a lot of functions and features. Some of them are more basic than others. So it's trying to find out what technology or what function best suits your need. Something like an image carousel is much more a UX, a UI preference in your email. It'll just allow you to swipe different images. However, you could adapt that with AmpScript to basically make that carousel more dynamic, so making images more relevant to your interests and experiences. A/B testing comes up quite a bit. In Marketing Cloud, it is an A/B test. It's one or the other, and then you've got a winner. In Journey Builder, you can do multi-variant splits. It's a less capable of A/B testing in that sense, but more powerful in others. Live image, that has been used, or a good use case on that is you have a voucher in an email and you want to expire the voucher in the inbox. So I've sent you the email 5 days ago, the voucher is now expired. I want to change the image in your inbox after I've sent it. I don't want to send you another campaign to tell you it's expired. I just want to tell you in your existing email that it's expired. You could use live images for that.
What's the technology behind that live image?
It is Marketing Cloud. It is a feature, a function in Marketing Cloud. It effectively uses the email in your inbox doesn't change, but the image source changes. So it kind of refreshes on that. I've typically used it like that for vouchers where they expire. External content, very useful for RSS feeds. So you've got content up on your website. It's got an RSS service, and you want to scrape that content down from the website and reutilize it in email. That's quite useful. We've used that quite a bit. Now you're kind of getting more kind of up to the advanced stages of dynamic content. The dynamic content tool in Marketing Cloud is very good. It's like an if-then statement. If a value is this, then show this piece of content, else show something else. Probably some of its downsides are that you're configuring each dynamic content block, and the rule of thumb is that if your dynamic content rules go above about 10, 15, you may want to consider using AmpScript to make the same function, but it would be much easier to maintain in the long run, because making a dynamic content block, those rules are in a nice UI, but there's a lot more clicking around to do that. However, AmpScript is a programming language, and therefore you need kind of a developer head, a developer mindset. However, you could certainly maintain it quicker or develop it quicker in AmpScript than you could do in dynamic content. Reference content is useful for where you just want to referencing content from an external source inside Marketing Cloud. So like getting a content box, content component, and bringing it into the email. Einstein, I think there's another talk at the same time, and I think that's where most of the crowd have gone to. Einstein is very useful where it's able to do its engagement scoring Einstein. It's able to look at the customer's activities of, who is opening your emails, what's their likelihood to open the next email, what's their likelihood to click on the next email. And you can again use all of that content and that audience to serve better content. So you can basically say, get me everybody who is least likely to open or click on an email. And then you could do a particular campaign with them, like a win-back campaign, send them a voucher, try to get them re-engaged. And at that point, if they're unengaged, I would be saying, kill them off. Don't hold on to dirty data. There's one last block in there, which is the top right, which is the custom block. This is relatively new. We used to be able to kind of build, or we can still do it, the equivalent of a custom block in Marketing Cloud. And that was basically creating a standard HTML content block, loading up all of your AMP script into that content block, and it's stored in Marketing Cloud. The new custom blocks allow you to store your kind of custom component on your own server, on your own service, and it uses the content API. You can effectively do even cooler stuff, basically. You could integrate your content with further external systems, and you will get certainly better performance. Now, some of this in kind of action, as it was. Order confirmations. So I make a purchase for my local takeaway. I get an order confirmation, straight away as soon as I order. Even though in Just Eat's example, it's a little bit more complex, because when you make an order on the website or through the app, your order is sent to a restaurant, and the restaurant decides whether they accept the order or not. So every restaurant has a little terminal to say, I will accept the order, or maybe I'm too busy, I will decline that order. And based on that interaction, it can trigger off an email, the order confirmation email. Thanks for your order, it's on its way, it should be there with you in half an hour. And you can get a line item receipt. So that's a basic use case of order confirmation. It's a triggered send. How you could expand that further then is after your order, so you've ordered maybe 2 hours ago, now I'm going to send you a follow-up email. I'm going to ask you, how was your meal? How would you rate it? Would you order from that restaurant once again? Yes and no, okay? And you can take that information then into basically future campaigns. So now what we can do is look at your order history, and we can say, okay, William loves to order Chinese every Friday night. Every now and then he'll order an Indian cuisine, but he never orders fish and chips, okay? Using all of the information and the information of things like your ratings, would you order from them again? Well, now I can make recommendations to you. And the recommendations of this content, these are the smart block contents where I know all of the restaurants in my ecosystem or in my data. I have images and logos, and I have URLs for them. I know what cuisines they are. I know their localities. Well, I'm matching that data to your preferences. So would you like to order another Chinese, maybe from a different restaurant this time? Or do you just like that one restaurant? So would you like something different? Would you like to try Indian this time? Again, this is the kind of smart block, the custom block. When I built this for Just Eat a few years back, this was done in just raw AMP script within a custom block. Now you could build it in a custom block outside of the system, and you could actually do a lot more. But this was a great way of just being able to serve content. I've done a similar one for a daily deals website, where again it's using more algorithms of understanding what you've purchased, what your interests are. Some of the complexities in this that people don't really understand or realize is the postcode. Making sure that your content or your recommendations are relevant to your area. That's a really, really challenging thing, because you don't want to recommend chicken korma up in Scotland when you're down in London. So all of that has to be taken into account. For the kind of architectural side, how it would look is there's so many different ways. I was actually asked this yesterday, is which way would I do it? You want to pre-process as much information as you can beforehand. Okay, so when you're sending the email, it's more real time. It's a lot quicker. So pre-process in SQL, and then limit the number of data extension lookups. So these data tables, limit how many times you have to look them up, and you kind of do that limitation by doing the pre-processing in SQL. Then categorize and shuffle recommendations using AmpScript. So there's a load of AmpScript functions like shuffle, etc., that I could get recommendations, and in Just Eat's case, it was get me new restaurants in your area, get me restaurants that you've ordered from in the past, etc. But shuffle them around a little bit in their categories and then join them together. And that gives you a pretty much even balance of who you're recommending. And then limit the recommendations in email. There's a Gmail clipping, Gmail will clip a message over 100 kilobytes. So each of these component boxes in your email is a size. And if I loop through an email and print 100 of these, my email is going to get really big, and then Gmail will clip it. While if I just limit it to 5, I've got a better chance. That is probably a risky side of dynamic content, because you never really tell how big your email body will be. Finally, if you don't know Elliot Harper, I'd certainly suggest looking him up. He's a massive MVP for the community. He is demoing this, I think it's in Australia at the World Tour at the moment. He's just developed, basically, this is using the content block API, or the custom component block. And what it's allowing you to do is pretty much drag and drop AmpScript functions inside the UI. It's pretty cool. It certainly reduces down the need to learn AmpScript, because everything is one of these little drag and drop code blocks. That in itself would then allow you to more easily expand your dynamic content. And then also, if you're interested, on our blog, we're currently doing a series of these, is just how you translate or how you manage multilingual emails in Marketing Cloud. We were asked this a couple of weeks ago from a client, and we came up with about 7 or 8 different possible ways for you to handle dynamic content or localized content in Marketing Cloud. The client usually asks us which way is the best way, and that's where it gets challenging, because no one way is correct. It's down to basically your structure within the business. And that is me. Any questions? Thank you. I'll give you the mic so that you. Oh, there you go.
So with the Einstein Marketing Cloud stuff that you had one screenshot of, I've got 2 questions. One is it included as part of standard Marketing Cloud? And the second question is it useful and does it really work?
2 great questions. It is, I have it here, it's included in Corporate, Enterprise Edition, and it's also purchasable on the Pro Edition. Is it useful? Yes, it certainly gives you good insight. You could, of course, still build the same insight looking at the opens and the click tables, but it does give it to you in a more visual way. And the data then from here is available in a data extension, so you can query better, get me all of the people who are in the most likely threshold. it's got its purposes, certainly as a use case.
Okay.
Any others?
What's your favorite feature of Marketing Cloud?
Oh, what is my favorite feature in Marketing Cloud? AmScript, I think. We're helping a client with Pardot at the moment, and Pardot is really useful for lead management, but it lacks scripting capabilities. And then you start realizing actually Marketing Cloud is really cool for its capabilities of being able to do things with AmScript. You can do so much with it. It's so expandable. Good question though. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.